Ladies and gentlemen, I'm reading from a Forbes article. Twitter files. Founder Jack Dorsey urges Musk to release everything without filter. This is the biggest, most consequential, important news story of the past 2 years. Well, actually, the second most. The first one was the actual story that was where journalists broke the story at the New York Post. that was suppressed and silenced and censored, and Twitter, because House Democrats influenced them, and because the Federal Bureau of Investigation notified them that hostile foreign countries might interfere, then decided to suppress the story. If Federal Bureau of Investigation officials know very well that a tech firm or a social media company is going to silence or suspend the New York Post, for example, simply because that agency, the FBI, warns everyone that another country might want you to know about the corruption found within the Democratic Party, that's government involvement. Democrats, in a very disingenuous and duplicitous manner, say, you can't prove anything. All we did, and this is according to Matt Taibbi, all Democrats did was use a third-party public relations and polling firm. So this company took a poll of a bunch of congressional Democrats and Republicans, and they said that the House Democrats running Congress, the House of Representatives, will investigate if Twitter publishes something that was material infiltrated by another country, like the Democratic National Committee emails that showed that Bernie Sanders was being railroaded, which influenced impressionable voters to vote for Trump, because the truth about the Democratic Party makes you vote for Trump or DeSantis. And I actually think DeSantis will overtake Trump if he wants to, or that's a possibility. If Trump does not continue any recent missteps, there's nothing stopping him if he also forms some kind of alliance with the Arizona Republican Party and the Georgia Republican Party, or some kind of agreement or olive branch. Otherwise, it's curtains. These state and regional Republican parties, when they just don't want to align with Trump, they'll do everything to side and essentially side with Democrats. But anyway, you saw that almost like, anyway, that's a whole other story. We saw that in Georgia. The Georgia Republican Party picked Kemp, but not Herschel Walker. And so DeSantis might not have that problem, but that's a whole other story. That's a whole other can of worms. Hit subscribe to this channel, ladies and gentlemen. This is huge, okay? And so when you're living in a world, for example, I will vote Trump. If it's not Trump, I'll vote DeSantis. We had record low unemployment, record low poverty with Trump, and real wages were up. Real wages are down with Mashed Potato Brains Joe. Real wages are down. Unemployment will go up. Unemployment is only down because it took 3 years to get to where we were before Democratic governors tanked their states gleefully. And so we went from record low unemployment with real wages up to 20 plus million people unemployed within 3 months 2 years ago. In Trump's last year, that wasn't his fault. That there was a political component there. There was also a political component in suppressing the Hunter story. But Trump has to focus on the economic accomplishments and the foreign policy accomplishments. Okay, first president to step foot in North Korea, Abraham Accords, the Doha agreement that Biden completely botched. Those 13 Americans should be alive today. Called for a May 1st, 2021 withdrawal. See, because everything is now public relations, and people like Democrats and independents are shielded from the corruption within Biden's administration. They were shielded from the corruption with candidate Biden, the Democratic nominee. So when you go through all of these hoops and you intimidate and you go through all of these surreptitious means to get Twitter And you have people more than willing on within Twitter's moderation team, and they're all far left or liberal Democrats. They don't want Republicans to win, or they didn't want Trump to win. Now, they'll do the same thing to DeSantis also. So don't get me wrong. I do understand the template, the playbook, the rubric, the roadmap is the same. They'll go after DeSantis just like they'll say DeSantis is worse than Trump. But see, here's where DeSantis is a little better at this moment at communicating. He's better at communicating, and he's better at playing politics. And he's also proving himself to be very much like Trump. The good things about Trump. Taking on a very corrupt political establishment, both left and right. That's what I thought Bernie Sanders would do. But Bernie Sanders was cheated. And the only thing that he spoke up about was not unendorsing a person from TYT because of writing that was bigoted. And that's the only, so when he was railroaded in the Democratic National Committee, he didn't even acknowledge it. These Twitter files are truthful, like they are the internal dialogue of Democrats who are in power within tech, in power within government, suppressing and silencing people and breaking the First Amendment. The Twitter files round 2 will show very likely, almost certainly more of that. But you have Jack Dorsey also pushing for this, which I find very interesting. But you know what? I'll take it. I think very likely Mr. Dorsey is on a very, very smart and wise public relations campaign. I find it difficult to believe that the top person at Twitter, Jack Dorsey, would not have as much, would be overshadowed by the decision making of middle managers or a content team or whatever. I think ultimately the decision rested with him. I have no clue, I have no backing or evidence to say that he was fine with it and he didn't. So Matt Taibbi said that, Dorsey wasn't involved with this. But I find that hard to believe. And so right now, what you're seeing is Dorsey now telling Musk, hey, you fired the legal counsel, the former FBI attorney, James Baker. Now just release everything. Unfiltered. And I talked about that in a segment prior to this one. I will have a live stream later this evening, probably around 10 p.m. Pacific, people. So be here. But when you read articles saying, well, it wasn't the First Amendment, it was a company, and it wasn't the Federal Bureau of Investigation, and it wasn't a government. And Matt Taibbi, this article says right here, this Forbes article says, well, Matt Taibbi said there was no government involvement. He was talking about a foreign government. He wasn't talking about government agencies. He specifically states that House Democrats influenced Twitter officials. Now, here's what Democrats do. They continually bend the law and engage in overt corruption, and they say, well, it's legal. And oftentimes it is. That's what, God bless him, Trump has to understand. A lot of the corruption that he's talking about is 100% legal. So, no more complaining anymore. No more complaining. The politics of grievance, Democrats are, that's their racket. The politics of grievance. Not actually addressing poverty. Poverty is up. Poverty is close to 15%, according to Columbia University. Poverty is up. And we're going to get into a much worse recession next year. And so they don't really care about poverty. They care about public relations and, as much it's an arm wrestling match. They just want to win. Democrats just want to win. Independents don't want to hear about Trump anymore, which is why DeSantis would be unstoppable. And I love Trump as a person who allocated more funding to historically black colleges and universities than any president ever, signed an executive order combating anti-Semitism on college campuses. Trump, reversed the Lincoln Project, U.S. foreign policy, did all of those things. He did all of those things, and I judge him based on his accomplishments. Unfortunately, the country doesn't do that with politicians. They judge based on ability to communicate and persona. And if Trump can get back the magic or electricity, he'd be unstoppable of 2015. He has to actually get back there. But DeSantis already has that. So, and if it's a primary, I'm voting Trump. But if DeSantis wins a primary, then I'll vote DeSantis if he continues with being the antithesis of Lincoln Project Republicans. Give me your thoughts below. Jack Dorsey and Elon Musk are releasing these files, and it'll show even greater, almost certainly, even greater government involvement. Give me your thoughts. Thank you.